Hi and welcome to this video on the complete introduction to Power BI. My name is Ian Littlejohn and I'm an instructor at Data Insight Training. I'm also an international trainer, data analyst and consultant. So I'm really looking forward to taking you through this video today. We're going to be looking at the power of Power BI and we're going to be taking some Excel data and we're going to be showing you how we can easily transform that Excel data into useful information. So please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. If you really enjoy this video, we will be producing more videos in terms of getting to understand different products. Okay, so let's get into Power BI. Let's have a look at what we're going to be working with. So we're going to start with a familiar situation for many Excel users. We've got a table of data here. And as you can see on the table of data, we've got quite a bit of sales data. So we've got your normal information such as order IDs, order dates, sales, profit amounts, and then different products, manufacturers, different brands and product categories. So quite a bit of different information that we got here in our Excel sheet. Now what we want to do is we want to load this into our Power BI. So let's load up our Power BI and work with that. Okay, so we got Power BI loaded, and when we start off with Power BI, we can see that at the top over here, we get this option to get different data. So when we look over here, you'll have some predefined data sources that you can quickly access, such as Excel, Power BI. However, if you go to get data, you'll see a list of most common different data sources that you can use. If I click on the more button, then we'll see then it will list a set of all of the different data sources that Power BI can actually access. So if we run through this, we'll see that we've got quite a significant number of different data sources. However, in this example, we're just starting with an Excel spreadsheet. So we're going to be going to Excel and we're going to be using the Excel option. So we just click on the connect button. Okay, so we get to open the file. We're going to choose our sales data that we're working with. We click on open, and then this will now create a connection from Power BI to the Excel data source. Okay, so our Power BI navigator now opens, and if I click on one of the tables of data over here, you'll see that it gives me a preview of my data. I'll just move this up a little bit, and we can see those different fields that we saw in our Excel. Now you have a button over here called load, and that would just load then this data source straight into Power BI. Or you have the option to transform data. So in this example, I'm going to click on the transform data button. The transform button now opens the query editor. Now this is a really powerful piece of software. It really allows me to change any of the attributes of my data or to filter my data that is coming in. So you'll see over here that I've got my query data 1 and it shows me a preview of the data that is in the Excel. So if I run across here now, you'll see all the different fields that are actually in the Excel. Now, there's a number of different things that we can do here. Firstly, you can decide, do you want to remove specific columns? So you can take specific fields out of the data source. You can also decide, do you want to change the data type? Now you'll see because this is Excel data, it's actually picked up the data types pretty well. So this is a whole number. This is a date field. You've got another whole number over here. So it's actually picked up the data types really well. Now we actually have different videos and training on the fact of using the query editor. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview really of some of the functions here. So we can do the different data types over here, changing data types as well. What you can also do is you can do filters. So you can actually decide how you want to filter the data coming in. So at this point, no data has actually been loaded into Power BI. And what actually happens with this is we create a set of steps that are created within the query editor. The steps is like a macro. So whenever you refresh your data, this list of steps will then be run before the data is actually brought into Power BI. As I said, we do have other videos that we'll be going through all the functions upon this. But you'll see at the top over here, you get different transformation functions. You can split columns, you can extract data, you can do different additions. There's different date and time calculations you can do. So it's really, really powerful. Now what actually happens here in the background is that we actually create something called mscript. So if I go to my advanced editor over here, you'll see that it's actually creating script. So as I've said, at this point, no data has actually been loaded into Power BI. Only after all of the script is run, then the data that is left or has been transformed will actually be loaded into Power BI. Now to do this, we click on the close and apply button. So we're going to click on the close and apply button now. Okay, so we'll see that the data is now being read from the Power Query and the transformations that have been done. So my data has now been loaded into my fields in my Power BI. So this has been imported into the actual Power BI data model. Once your data has been loaded into Power BI, we can actually go across over here to our data button. And when we click on our data button, you'll see then it will give us a preview of all the data that has been loaded into Power BI table. So you'll see our different fields that were in the Excel spreadsheet over here. You can actually filter this, so if you wanted to, you could click on your drop-down filter. Works very much the same as the way an Excel filter works. You'll see a similar set of options over here. So you could use a date filter, or you could use a numeric filter, and it works in a very similar way. You can also add new calculations to your data model. We'll show a little bit later an example of that. So this is just your view of your data at the time. We can also go across to our report option over here. Now, report option, we've got a canvas that we can use now to actually populate our different visualizations. So you'll see here, there's quite a lot of different visualizations you can use in Power BI. One of the most common ones is your table, but you may want to use graphs such as a bar graph or a column graph over here. You can have line graphs. So we're going to look at a few examples of this. Let's say we want to start off with a table of data. So let's say I want to know what is my total sales by my different product categories. So I click on my table over here, and it creates a visualization for me. Now over here we have the values that can be populated into this visualization. If I go to my fields over here, I can actually just select the fields themselves. So if I say product category, it automatically goes into the visualization. And I can also choose, say, for example, my sale. So my sales now has populated into this. Now what you'll see at this time is the fact that I've got my sales values and it's got a small decimal option over here. If I click on one of my fields, you will see that I actually get new tools that I can work with. So at the top I've got table tools and column tools. So your table tools over here give you specific options, and you've got your column tools over here. In the column tools, what I could do is say I want to actually now format this number, the sales number, as a general. And let's say I want to make 1,000 separator, and I want 0 decimal places. And it will now update this sales figure to show that. Also, what I can do with my different tables is go to, if I select it again, go to this icon over here, which is my formatting. So you're going to see that this is pretty standard throughout the whole of Power BI. Whenever we've got a visualization, we can populate the values, we can go to our formatting over here, and then certain visualization also allows you to do analytics on it. But in this case, we're going to look at our formatting, and you'll see that we get specific options such as I could change the style. So let's say I want to actually go for a minimal style. You can see it just changes the style over here. I could also say I want to change the whole grid. And you can see I can turn on vertical grids, for example, the thickness and different color options. But let's say I want to actually change the text size. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger here. So as I said, there's actually a lot of formatting options that you can use. For example, I could turn a border on. So I'm going to leave you to experiment with a lot of those. But for now, we've got our first table that's been created. So once I've got a table, I can also just create other tables. There are a couple of ways that I could do that. I could create another table over here. Let's say I wanted to see my different product subcategories. So I'm going to move it over there. You'll see that there's alignment guides that help us and guide us. And let's say I use my product subcategory over here, and I wanted to use my profit. Now you see another way of populating this table is I just dragged the fields actually into the visualization, or I could have dragged the values into here as well. So once I've got the values over here, again, you'll see that my profit can be, I could do the numeric format in that. Just go to my column tools, go to my general over here, so it's a decimal number, use my 1,000 separator, and in this case now we could reduce the number of decimals. Okay, so now I've got a similar looking table. However, I might want to use the same formatting as this. So a way I could do that is select this table, and I've got a format painter over here. I could select my format painter, move it across over here, and now you'll see that the format is now being painted across here. I just want to fix the profit. So we just want to go back to profit, and I just want the 1,000 separator. So I'm just going to click on this button here. And there we go. That's looking a little bit better. Okay, so you can have your fields in here, and once you have your values in a table, so let's say we got this product subcategory of profit, you can click on the drop down over here, and this gives you multiple different methods of aggregation. So you could say I want to see this in average, or the minimum amount, maximum amount, count amounts. In our training, we go into a lot more depth about the fact of how to do these aggregations, but just know you can do this. Okay, another really useful function between tables is the ability to cross-filter. So if I selected a product category over here, you'll see that straight away now it actually filters my product subcategories to only show that product category that has been selected. So cross-filtering, really useful function within Power BI. Okay, so we're going to be looking at some further visualizations. So within our report, we're able to add further visualizations. So let's say, for example, I just delete this table for now. We'll keep this original table. We'll just move it a little bit out the way. And let's look at some other visualizations we could add. So let's say, for example, over here, we have something called a scorecard. So when I click on the scorecard, okay, it's changed the existing visualization. So I'm just going to undo that. I'm going to click on white space, and then I'm going to click on the scorecard. So you'll see again, it creates a placeholder for the visualization. So let's say I drag my total sales into there. So you'll see now it gives me a bigger number, a more visual number. So a scorecard is really great when you want one field and you want to be able to visualize this. Again, I could use my formatting. And let's say, for example, I want to format my data label. And let's say we want to have 2 decimal places in here. So we're just going to enter 2 over here. So now we've got that quite a bit bigger. And you can easily use your scorecards. So let's say, for example, we now take that and we copy and paste it. So we just create a new scorecard. And let's say, for example, in this one, we want to see our total profit. And we now have our total profit in there. Let's say we want to turn our border on for this one. And let's say we want our border on for that one as well. And let's say, for example, I wanted to know what was my average sales value for my entire data set. So again, I'm going to copy and paste that. And we're going to now drag our sales into this one. Let's just go back to the values, go back to sales. And remember, I was saying on the drop down over here, you can change your method of aggregation. So in this case, we're going to say we want it to be an average. And now it shows me my average sales value for the entire data set. So these are scorecards, really useful in terms of being able to see that information. Let's say I wanted to see a trend. So over here now, we've got our different space over here. So we're going to use a line graph. So let's add a line graph in here and make it a little bit bigger. And because trends need to be over time, we are going to put our order date into our axis field. And we're going to be using our values. Let's say we wanted to see our sales over time. Okay, so now what's created is actually a hierarchy of our dates. So at the top over here, we can actually do a drill down. So if I click on this one over here, it expands it. So now you'll see that I've got sales by year and quarter. Do it again, sales by year and quarter and month. So what it's doing is actually just expanding through this hierarchy to show me my different sales values. So that's really useful. That's what I'm looking for in terms of a trend graph. So I'm going to accept that, maybe format it, and just add a border. Now, obviously, with each of these options, there's quite a lot more options that we can apply. And as I say, we go through in our training a lot more depth as to what could be added with this. We're just going to create a basic Power BI report here just to run you through this. Okay, let's say we wanted to use a column graph. So again, over here, I've got my column graph. So I'm going to add a column graph over here. Again, let's expand the size of that. And let's say with this one, we wanted to see our different manufacturers. So we put that into our axis. And let's say we wanted to see our different profit values over here. And then we have our different manufacturers, our different profit values. And again, let's just put a border around there. Okay, so we got a very simple looking column graph. And let's look at a final one. Let's say down here over here, we just wanted to see a pie graph and we wanted to see the percentage of profit by all different channels. Okay, so we're going to add pie graph. Let's just move it down here. And this one is going to be now, we're going to use our channel in our legend and our profit and our values. And you'll see over here now that our profit by channel now is displaying the information. But it's not really showing the key information I want. It's got my value and my percentage. So let's just go to my format. Let's see in my detail over here what we are displaying. And our display units, our label style is really what we're looking for here. So we want category and percentage of value. And let's see if we can increase that text size a little bit. There we go. That's looking much better. Okay, so as I say, you can actually play around with the formatting, see the different options. Let's just give this a border just to put that border around there. Okay, so we've got some different visualizations we put together very quickly. Now you'll remember that I said about cross-filtering. So if I selected one of my product categories, you'll see now automatically it cross-filters all of the other visualizations. And this is really, really powerful. If I click on white space, it clears the cross-filtering, but I can actually go to over here to my column graph and you'll see it will also cross-filter. So I can choose different manufacturers, I can see my trends, my totals, my product category sales, my profit by the different channels. Again, if I click on there, and I can even use the pie chart to also cross-filter. So very powerful filtering capabilities. But another useful filter is the ability to add a slicer. So over here is my slicer visualization. So let's say, for example, I wanted to add this, and we want to have different regions that we can now filter this on. So we're going to take our region and we're going to add it to our slicer, and you'll see straight away I get my region, and let's maybe just make this a little bit bigger with my items and make that a size 10 or 12. And now we've got our different regions. So what our slicer will do, and will now also filter this. Also, what you could add, let's just put a border around there. So we'll just format that quickly, put a border around that. And let's say, for example, we also wanted a date filter. So again, we'll add another slicer over here. We're going to put our order date in here. And now you'll see that it gives me a range of dates that I could now filter this by selecting one date to another date in terms of selection. But slicers are really powerful, lots of different options that we can use for slicers, so it's something for you to play around with. But there's just a couple of quick options that we could use on this. So far in our visualizations, we've been using fields that are available in our data set over here. But what happens if we need a field that is actually not part of the data set? Let's say we need to calculate a new field or create a new field. So in this example, let's say, for example, I wanted to know what was the sales by, say, weekday. So I want to know by Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, or Thursday what the actual sales was. Now remember, back in my data over here, we got all our different columns. So really what I want to do here is add a new column, and what I want to do is I want to calculate from the order date what weekday it was. Now at the top over here, what we do is we actually get the ability to create new columns and new calculations. So if I click on new column over here, you'll see that also working on it, and it creates a Excel type formula bar for me to work with. You'll also see over here that I get now a new column in my data set. So let's say I want to create this, and I'm going to call it my weekday, and it's going to be my weekday number. And just like Excel, what I'm doing is I'm using the equal sign to say I'm using a function. Now in this case, because we are using a data set, I have to have a field name. So that is why I've said weekday number equals. So this is my field name that is going to be used as my column name over here. However, when I use the weekday function, because of the fact that I've got the equal sign, straight away Power BI will pick up that I'm actually using a DAX formula. So DAX is data analysis expressions. It's very much like Excel. It's a formula language that we use to create new fields and new calculations within our data model. DAX is an enormous topic on itself, and it's something that we do training on, so please have a look out for that training. But in this case, I just want to show you a brief example of this. So we're going to use the weekday function. I'm going to say weekday, and it will say, what is my date field? Now, if I use my left square bracket over here, it will give me a list of all the fields that are actually in my data set. So I could say, I want to know what is the weekday number of my order date. And again, I must close my parentheses, just like I would in Excel, and I press enter on this. Now we'll do the calculation to now work out what is the weekday number for each of the order dates. So I get a 1, a 6, a 2, a 3. In this case, a 1 is actually a Sunday. However, that's not always convenient to actually use a weekday number, because I might not know 1 is a Sunday. So what I might want to do is I might want to know what is my weekday name. So let's say, for example, now we create a new column, and we're going to call it, say, weekday name. And we use the same formats over here. So we're going to say weekday name equals, and you can see over here it's creating a new column, and that's going to be my new column name. And in this case, I'm going to use a DAX formula called equals format. So with the equals format, it works very much like the equals text in Excel. And what we're going to do again is take our value, which is my order date, and we're now going to put that into a specific format. Now in this case, because I want it to be in the weekday format, I want to use D's to denote the name of the weekdays. Now if I use 4 D's, it will give me the full weekday name. And if I use 3 D's, it will give me the shortened version. Again, I need to close my parentheses just to show that. Okay, so now I've got my weekday name being shown. So I've got my weekday number, I've got my weekday name. So I go back to my report, and let's add this as a table so we can easily see the result of this. Now, let's just say we put it down here and make it a bit bigger. Okay, so in our values over here, we now have our weekday name, and I drop that in there. And let's say I want to know what is my total sales over here. See, I get my total sales. Let's use the formatting from this one just to apply. So I'm going to select that, use my format painter, paint across there. Okay, that's looking good. A bit of space over here. Okay, so we've got a weekday name now, and you see that I've got Friday, Monday, Saturday, Sunday. And the problem is that this is actually sorting this according to your alphanumeric type of logic, whereas what we wanted to sort by chronological. So what they've done in Power BI is they've given us ability to sort a field by another field. So my weekday number, it's actually got the correct order for my weekday names. So in this case, what I could say is click on my weekday name over here, go to my column tools over here, and we're looking for an option called the sort by category. So when I choose sort by category now, I can see my weekday name is going to be sorted by my weekday number. Now when I do that, you'll see then that the order now changes to have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And it's now got the right chronological order because of the fact that it's using the weekday number. Okay, so there's a couple of things we can do with DAX very quickly. Let's say, for example, another thing I can do with DAX, and I've got my sales, and let's say I've got my profit in here as well. So I've got my sales and profit by my weekday name. Now what I want to do is calculate what is the profit ratio. Now with my profit ratio, what I want to do is I want to take the total sum of the profit divided by the total sum of the sales. So this is actually what we call a measure. Now in the previous example, I went to the data to be able to calculate a new column, but you can actually create new calculations right here within your report. You don't need to go out of it. And the way we do that is we actually select over here on New Measure button. And this will now give me my formula bar at the top over here. So I'm going to call this profit ratio. And what we're going to say is we're going to say equals. And in this case, I'm going to use a function called divide. In this case, what I'm going to say is I want to take the sum of my profit and I want to take the divided by the sum of my sales. And you can see that these are pretty quick and easy to put together. And let's just close that divide with the parentheses. I'm going to accept that. And it now does a calculation for my profit ratio. Now you see that a measure actually gets a different icon. So this is showing me that it's actually now a measure. And this will be calculated in context of the visualization. So what this will do is it'll actually take your total profit divided by your total sales as these two totals here. So let's just add that in there. Okay, now you can see my profit ratio is actually showing the percentage, which is, well, it's not showing the percentage. So it's actually a decimal. So again, I could go back to my measure tools over here, and we could say now we want to format this as a percentage, and I'm going to just say 1 decimal place for a percentage. Okay, so now that's now as a percentage. Okay, so DAX is a very important topic when it comes to Power BI, and there's a lot of calculations that you can add to your Power BI dashboard. The next step we're going to be looking at is actually publishing now our Power BI report into the Power BI service. So the Power BI service runs on the internet. It's a cloud-based system, and it allows us to be able to access our reports from basically any web browser or from our phone or from tablets. So we're going to have a look at how we do that. The first part is very important that you are actually signed in. So make sure that you have a Power BI service account. So in this case, I'm signed in and I've got a Power BI service account. Second part is make sure that your file is saved and it's got a name. The name of your file is going to be then the name that is going to be used when the Power BI file is published. So in this case, then we will click on the publish button when we're ready. And it would bring up then the options to be able to see where we want to publish to. Now, depending on the version of Power BI that you're running, if you've got Power BI Pro, you can actually have multiple different workspaces that you can publish to. However, if you're running on the Power BI and you're not running Pro, you're running the free version, then you only get to be able to publish into your workspace. So in this case, we're actually going to choose our workspace and we're going to say select for that, and we're going to publish into that. So sometimes it can take a little bit of time to publish to the Power BI service depending on the size of your file. Okay, so we've got success. It's now published into the Power BI service. You can actually open your file name just straight from the link over here, or you can go into your web browser and go to powerbi.com. So we're going to go across to the Power BI service. Okay, so I've signed into the Power BI service. And what you'll see is that you have an area under here called workspaces. So in this case, I've actually now published into my workspace, and you'll see that I have a report now, which has got the file name that I saved. So when I click on this report, it's basically showing me exactly the report that I had. So you'll see that Microsoft will show you some options in terms of how you can interact with your Power BI service. Okay, we'll get rid of those. You can work through them yourself. Okay, so we got a report over here, and you're going to see that it runs exactly like it did in your Power BI desktop. So if I choose my different regions over here, you can see that I get my full filtering, or if I choose a specific manufacturer, or if I choose a specific product category, all those filtering options work just like they did in the Power BI desktop. Okay, so this is my report at this time. Now, one of the things that people get very confused about in Power BI is the difference between a Power BI report and a Power BI dashboard. A lot of people would look at this and go, oh, but that looks like a dashboard. Yes, it could well be a dashboard. But in Power BI, what a dashboard means is a dashboard has actually been developed as a way of communicating with mobile devices. Now, often mobile devices have much smaller screen sizes than laptops or even tablets, and it's more difficult to see the information. So what we can do with dashboards is we can use the individual components and we can actually put those together into a dashboard view. So let's see how that works. If I go across now, you'll see that as I hover over, I get this pin option. When I click on the pin visual, it'll ask me if I want to put it in a dashboard. So let's say I'm going to create a new dashboard. I'm going to call it the sales dashboard. So we're going to enter that. I'm going to pin our total sales figure in. Let's say we're going to pin the profit figure in there as well. And we're also going to have our trend graph over here. So I'm going to click the pin over there. And let's say as well, we'll have our table and pin that in. And let's say as well, we'll take our little pie charts over here. Okay, so it's told me it's pinned it to the dashboard, and do I want to create a phone view? Okay, so we'll just remove all of those messages from Microsoft. But now I'm going to go across to my dashboard over here. We're going to click on the sales dashboard, and you'll see then you have these individual items that have been pinned in here. So these are each of the visualizations, and they've been pinned. And the key part about this is exactly that mobile option where you want to see what is the view in terms from your phone view. Now, if I go to these three ellipses over here and click on this, it will give me a bunch of options. A lot of these you can sort of play around with and see how they work. The one I'm looking for is the mobile view. So I'm going to select that. Okay, so the mobile view now opens, and this just shows me how this would show on my smartphone. And what you can do is you can actually unpin these tiles. So if you wanted to take them out, you can remove them. But you can see how this would actually display on your smartphone if you use the Power BI app. And what you need to do is you just need to go into your Apple or into your Android store, look for the Power BI app, download the Power BI app, you sign into it. And when you sign in, it will show you then all of your workspaces and all of your different reports and dashboards that you have available to you as well. So in this case over here, if we want to pin those back, you can just add them in there. If you want to move something around, you can pick it up, drop it, and this now just shows you what the view would look like on your phone. Well worth please downloading the Power BI app and having a look at the mobile views. They're pretty impressive. They work quite well actually. Okay, so that is your mobile view. Another option that I wanted to show you is just if we go back to our dashboard. And when we go back to our dashboard over here, you'll see at the top here that you can ask a question about your data. So this is something Microsoft's been working really hard on, is being able to create a natural language query ability. So let's say, for example, I wanted to know what was my sales in Italy. So let's say what was sales in Italy. And you can see it comes up with suggestions. As I started saying what was my sales in the country, it started showing me a list. Now it gives me the total by that. So let's say I want to see now by product category. And I can say by product category here. And now it gives me a breakdown of what the sales in Italy was by the product categories. Let's say I wanted to see this as a table. And again, you can see that there's a list of different visualizations that you can use. So this is really nice to be able to use this natural language Q&A that you can work with. Okay, so as you've seen, there's quite a lot that we can work with in Power BI. So I just wanted to say a really big thank you for taking the time to go through a complete introduction to Power BI. I hope you've seen that it's a really amazing product that will really take your data analysis and reporting to the next level. If you're looking for further training, please visit us at datainsighttraining.com. And we've got plenty of different training courses around Power BI that will take your skills even further. But thank you for taking the time to do this.